Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben. This is Diego Sanchez. Randy Couture.
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner. This is Don Frye.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio. Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio. It's the 25th of April. Dennis Shkradov here with Kasper Rosalowski on a little bit of a delayed episode of Submission Radio. But Kasper, we've got some goods for the fans today.
Oh, we've always got some goods. Different goods than we expected. We actually had some different guests planned, and then last second pullouts, people getting sick. Crazy things happening. Funny enough, the guest that we were going to have a few months ago that pulled out got us again, but that's all right. Submission Radio rages on, still strong, can't be held down. Don Frye makes his long-awaited return to Submission Radio. I feel like we could just have Don Frye on every single week, so we'll be chatting to him first in just a few minutes. And then, a first for Submission Radio, Junior Dos Santos, never before been on the show, wanted him for a long time, finally got him. So we'll be chatting to him second after Don Frye. And then, a staple, a cornerstone of Submission Radio, Elias Cepeda of Fox Sports. He's going to be back on the show to discuss a whole bunch of stuff. You know, the whole Conor McGregor fiasco, UFC 197. We're going to be touching on Bellator 153. Benson Henderson didn't have a great night there. So there's a lot to discuss and a lot of people to talk to. It's a pretty sexy show.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And there's a thing about Don Frye where you could just listen to him talk and give us thoughts about certain topics and subjects. So I can't wait to hear what he has to think about this whole UFC 200 fiasco, Conor McGregor and all that stuff as well. So, and also, excited to see if anything's happening with him in the movies and the television as well, because we love seeing Big Don on the screen. But guys, if you didn't see it, Submission Radio has a new Technique of the Week series, and we're pretty excited about it. We have none other than K1 legend Sam Greco, and he's going to be showing us a bunch of techniques. It actually kicked off last Wednesday. If you missed it, it's legend Sam Greco's slamming leg kick. And this is a very different theory on a leg kick that I've ever seen before. So he really breaks down his own way of throwing this leg kick. It's pretty crazy. I suggest you guys check it out, whether you're fighters or just casual people that like to go sparring at the gym or even just fitness kickboxers. I think this technique is pretty awesome. So make sure to check it out. That's up on the channel, youtube.com/Submission Radio AU.
Yeah, and we're getting great feedback so far, so we really appreciate it. There's like 1 million thumbs up. All right, maybe not 1 million. There's like 100 or so, but a lot of people have been enjoying it. So if you haven't checked it out already, definitely do so. Some of the feedback we've been getting is make sure to do more stand-up techniques, Submission Radio. I mean, not that we're low on any. We've had John Wayne Parr before. We've had Peter Graham. But the good news is we got a lot more Sam Greco coming, so there's plenty of stand-up to come. Don't forget to hit us up on Twitter @SubmissionAUS. During the fights, we like to post funny shit, GIFs and all that kind of stuff during the week. So hit us up there, facebook.com/Submission Radio AUS. If you have the time, jump on iTunes, give us a review. We always appreciate it. And we want to thank you for all the awesome reviews that we have gotten in the past, guys. We really couldn't have done it without you. But without further ado, that's pretty much it, guys. We're going to be jumping to our first guest on the line. And Dennis, I believe you're ready to introduce him.
All right, guys, our next guest is an MMA legend who is a UFC 8 and UFC Ultimate 1996 tournament winner. He has the most iconic mustache in the sport, and he joins us here today. It's a pleasure to welcome Don the Predator Frye back to Submission Radio. Don, welcome to the program.
Thanks, ladies. How y'all doing?
Ladies, it's like you've known us all our lives, Don. You know, no, it's great to have you back on. It's always fun when you come on, and it's been a while since we've heard from you. So tell us, what have you been up to? What has Don Frye been doing?
Yeah, it's been a while because you're too damn cheap to make the phone call, I guess. Cheap bastard.
Yeah.
Wife, Molly finally said she had enough of my bullshit, so she decided to divorce me.
Really?
I'm feeling sorry for myself, you know, and, besides that, my horse died. It's my horse, you know. Truck ain't running right. I'm just having a barrel of laughs.
Now, is this for real? Are you really going through a divorce, and did your horse really die? Or are you just pulling out finger here?
No, yeah, that's all true, partner. That's all true.
Oh man, sorry to hear it. How long has this been going on?
Fuck, I don't know. You know, you never know with a woman. You know, when they start planning shit. You know, shit. I think she's been planning them for years. She dropped it in my lap and freaking me out. I guess, it's hard living with me. It's shit, I don't even like myself. Jeez, I can't imagine a woman doing like me.
Well done. I mean, this means that a single Don Frye is coming out to the market. What's it feel like to be single for since probably the last 10 years or so. I think you and Molly have been together for a while, haven't you?
20 years. Yeah, we were together 20 years, partner.
Wow.
Yeah. Must have been like a prison sentence for.
So we imagine that no woman in like the 100-mile radius is safe now. Don Frye is back and he's coming out to party. Is that correct?
They're all in trouble, boy. If they're gonna snatch, they're in trouble.
Even the ones here in Australia better be put on notice because Don Frye is out and ready to go. Now, we know that you've obviously had a few things going on, but we have to ask you, Don, I mean, when you're not working on movies on TV, what does a typical week look like for Don Frye?
Hell, I do all kinds of stupid things, you know, but in a couple of weeks, my youngest daughter, Cassie, and I are getting ready to go over to my buddy, Justin Kipp. He's got a ranch over in Lordsburg, New Mexico, and we're going to help him with his cattle drive. We do that twice a year, you know, and hell, we have a great night. Cassie's a hell of a rider. Shit, she's almost better than I am.
We're talking horses, right? We're city slickers, so I don't know how much we know about cattle drives. What exactly does that involve? You guys are riding horses and you're steering the cattle, or what exactly is that?
Yeah, you get on a horse and you herd them all, you know, you get to one side of the ranch and you herd them into the center and into the corrals, and you separate them, and, you know, we notch their ears, we brand them, you know. Some of them you got to dehorn. It just depends. You know, it's a working cattle ranch.
Wow. It does sound like a lot of fun. Now, we also enjoy seeing you on the big screen. We have to ask you, have you been working on any new television or movie projects lately?
Yeah, I did a movie called Street Level with David LaBrava. He played Happy on Sons of Anarchy.
Ah.
And had Robert Patrick, Chuck Zito, and a bunch of other names in it, you know, and had a lot of fun. And today I just went over to Ruhei Katamura's house, you know, he was the director of the Godzilla movie I did, and so we started talking about a movie he's going to do in summer.
Because we were looking at your IMDb, and you've got one that we spoke about last time, the one about the world as if it would be run by Nazi Germany. What's this one that you're talking about that you're going to be shooting in the summer? What's that one called?
Oh, shit. You know, he didn't tell me, but it's a pretty interesting film, and hope he don't get mad at me spilling the beans. But, you know, it's about a sniper, you know, and he picks some targets and has some fun.
Well, let me ask you something, Don. When you prepare for a role, I mean, how do you prepare? Do you go and sort of do what your character would do to prepare for it? Or do you just sort of rock up and once the cameras are on and it's action, you just get in the character on the spot? How do you prepare for a role usually?
Oh, hell's bells. I've done almost everything there is to do, so I just walk up and, you know, shit, just remember your lines and don't bump into the furniture.
You crack your knuckles and then you're ready to go. So if you're playing a sniper, did you go out and do any sniping? Did you actually shoot some targets?
Oh, shit, partner. I've been shooting guns before you were born. Shit.
I have an easy time believing that.
Gasper has a young sounding voice, but he's actually 93 years old, so I don't know if that could be true.
What kind of guns are you shooting, Don?
Well, when you come over, we'll just put an apple in your head and we'll see how good I am, huh?
Yeah, well, we'll see if I live to tell the tale. What kind of gun are you using to shoot this apple off my head? Are you using a sniper rifle, shotgun by any chance? Because I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, I use a shotgun on you. You know, shit. You know,
I guess I'll be looking for a new co-host after our trip to America, Don.
Job security. I got an AR-10, which is a really nice weapon made by Patriot Ordnance Factory out of Phoenix. And, you know, the AR-10 shoots a 308. You know, AR-15 shoots a 223 or a 5.56, you know. And, shit, I like my 10. I have a lot of fun with that thing.
Is that, we don't really have too many guns here in Australia. Is that an automatic gun, or what exactly is AR-10?
It's a semi-automatic. You know,
that's all right.
You get all these damn politicians yelling automatic guns. There's no such thing. All right, that's a machine gun, and those things are illegal unless you got a special license. and the government has the right to come in at any time to check it. So, it's just showing how stupid politicians are. They don't know their head from their ass and what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Semi-auto is, the best you can get, if you're just a regular person.
Don Frye taking us to school when it comes to guns. I'm learning a lot here, Don. Now, we're on the heels of UFC 197, and we'd love to get your thoughts on some of the big fights from the event. Now, did you get a chance to watch many of the fights from UFC 197, Don?
Yeah, but I had to have somebody hit me with a cattle prod every couple of minutes to wake me up. Jeez, what is that? Is that a sleeper?
Which ones did you fall asleep to? Which ones did you sleep the most heavily through, Don?
I mean, they were all bad. Jeez, a freaking ways. I mean, Jon Jones, what'd they throw? About 7 punches the whole fight? Crime, and they stayed about 10 feet away from each other.
Before we jump to the Jon Jones fight, I want to get your thoughts about Demetrius Johnson, who put Henry Cejudo away in the first round and pretty much cleared out the flyweight division. Is Don Frye a Demetrius Johnson fan, and what would you like to see him do next?
Hell yeah, he did a great job, man. That guy is one of the best fighters walking the planet. The guy is so impressive, man. He's a good fella. Henry, what a dumbass. I mean, he looks like he just keeps wrestling and trying to learn any martial arts skills, how to fight, how to throw a punch, how to move his head, how to fight a sleeper or an armbar. Jeez Louise, I don't know who the hell's managing. He's doing a bad job of it, and he's a new trainer.
I'm glad that you said that you're a Demetrius Johnson fan. Do you think he's underappreciated by the fans?
Of course he is. He's underappreciated by the promoters, too. I mean, he needs to be making twice as much money as he is. I don't know what he's making, but I'm sure they're not paying him what he's worth.
Yeah, no, certainly. He's discussed the fact that there is a big discrepancy, even though he is champion. A lot of guys like Conor McGregor might make a lot more money than him. Do you think he's in a tough position, though, because he's cleared out the division? He's no doubtly the best guy in the division. He doesn't really have anyone left to fight, and the UFC aren't really sure what to do with him. What would you do with him if you were in the head of the UFC? Where would you throw him next?
Well, I would get a pro wrestler and teach him how to shoot a promo. I mean, that's his problem. That's why Conor McGregor makes more money than anybody else. He knows how to cut a promo, and it's an art form, and you work at it just like you work at fighting any other skill. It's a skill, talent, and you got to work and train at it. And most people don't. That's why they aren't making money.
Yeah, we're big fans on the old cutting a promo and sort of selling the fight. You mentioned Jon Jones before, so talk to us. What exactly did you take issue with given his performance? I mean, he took on OSP with 3 weeks' notice. A lot of people expected Jones to finish OSP, but he himself was coming off a long layoff. Do you give him any leeway there?
No, I don't. Because the guy has so much talent, for him to let that thing get out of the first round was insulting, but I had some guy tell me, Jones always has problems with somebody, as tall as him. And that's true. I mean, he fought Jorgensen, right?
Gustafsson,
that was a tough fight for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, this OSP fellow, just as big, it was a tough fight for him. Criminy.
I'm curious. The next fight for Jones will be DC. Do you think Jones will be able to beat DC like he did in their first fight, or do you think this rematch goes differently?
Oh my God, it'll be the same thing. It'll be the same thing. Cormier is the most overrated, underperforming, worthless trash talker I've ever heard. I mean, it sounds like one of the Cosby kids, biddy. You can't understand a damn thing he's saying, and he keeps repeating the same stuff, and then he's not producing anything, and I don't know what the hell's going on up there at AKA, but I would get a new trainer or a new training partners, sparring partners. I mean, they're all getting hurt. Jeez, they got to do something different. They got to be smart enough to protect their fighters, or they're all going to starve to death.
I'm actually surprised on. I thought, considering Daniel Cormier, his love for professional wrestling, the fact that he does, put a lot of effort into his promos. What is it that you don't like about his promos?
I think that I don't see him putting any effort into them. My God, I think they're terrible. And he's acting like a badass, like he earned that belt. He didn't earn that belt. Crime, that as far as I'm concerned, that belt still belongs to Jon Jones.
Well, it's certainly an interesting fight, and it could be at UFC 200. I mean, Dana White has mentioned that they might move the fight there depending on how DC goes with his injury and how Jones pulls up from this fight. And speaking of UFC 200 and the weekend surrounding the craziness, obviously there's going to be an international fight week in July in Vegas. I mean, it's still early days, but Don Frye, have you gotten any confirmation as to whether or not you'll be a part of International Fight Week this year?
Nobody's giving me a phone call, partner. So it's not looking good. It's looking like I'll be hanging out at the ranch.
But you got confirmation last time, very late notice. Do you reckon that'll happen? Are you holding out? And would you like to be part of it if the UFC wanted you there?
No, I'm not holding out. What do you think? I'm like some fat broad waiting on the date? I got shit to do.
Obviously, you've spent some time previously during past fight weeks. We just wonder, what's the strangest fan interaction that you've had at these type of events? Do any stand out to you?
Oh, my God, yeah, there's some weirdos, Some guy tried to hump my leg or something during the photo.
What?
Damn it.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, God dang, don't know what he was doing. I cleared him out there. But I had some girl so sweet, she just started crying. And I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "Yeah, I'm just so excited to meet you." I'm like, wow. And it was just the nicest thing, man, that poor little girl. I mean, she was bawling.
Wow. We wish fans would approach us like that. This guy that was trying to hump your leg. Yeah, I don't think it'll ever happen. This guy that was trying to hump your leg. What happened? What was your reaction when he did this?
I told him, "Get the hell away from me! Don't ever do that again. Go find somebody else to hump." And if he's smart, I'd never see him again in his life.
I mean, we've got a lot of listeners that listen to this program weekly, and a lot of them might be at the next International Fight Week if you're there. What are a couple of tips that you can give them when it comes time for them to meet Don Frye? What's the best way to approach you at these events?
Show me your tits. Brush your teeth, and
maybe a nice bottle of something from the guys.
What's that?
Maybe a bottle of something. They can get you a good bottle of whiskey or something.
Yeah, that's it, man. That would make me happy.
Awesome. A shot of whiskey, and don't try and hump Don Frye's leg.
Yeah, nice bottle of bourbon.
Nice. Let's talk about the big news this week, Don. I mean, fans are shocked when Conor McGregor was pulled from UFC 200. For those who don't know, which I think is very few, McGregor obviously didn't want to do any major media world tour. He discussed how much all the promotion affected his fight preparation, his last fight, UFC 196. Got to get your thoughts, Don. What do you make of McGregor's stance?
I think he's right. He's spot on. I mean, that takes too much goddamn time away from you. You're hired to be a fighter, not to be an interviewee. You got things to do. I mean, when you're training for a fight, it's a 24/7 job, and they got you doing more interviews and promoting than they do fighting. Well, then you're not going to last long. You're not going to have a long career.
Well, fans are a bit frustrated because Nate Diaz doesn't mind the fact that McGregor couldn't make it down to the press conference and just wants to fight. McGregor's willing to fight. He's still willing to do some minimal press. The fans want to see the fight. Do you think it's sort of gotten into a bit of a ridiculous situation now where the only reason the fight's not happening is because the UFC just isn't happy about him skipping some of these media obligations?
Well, how do I say this without being rude? I guess I can't. I'm so pissed on it. Dana likes everything his way, and if he don't get his way, he throws a fit. And that's what's happening, and Conor's spot on, man. You can't spend more time doing interviews than training. This is a dangerous sport, okay? And the thing is, it went from a fight to a sport to a TV show. And it's still a dangerous thing. And so you have to prepare yourself for it because just training. If you're on one of those fights and you're not hurt, you don't get hurt, it still takes 2 weeks to recover because of all the hard training. But if you're not training, you're going to get hurt.
I mean, do you think that the UFC in a way is shooting themselves in the foot by not putting Conor on that card? Because it's fair to say it'd make a lot of money, with it'd make more money with him on it than say any other fight. And let me ask you this, Don: if you were the head of the UFC, let's say hypothetically, how would you fix this situation? What would the Don Frye touch be?
Oh hell, I'd fly Conor in and take him out, wine him and dine him, and tell him, okay, what do I got to do to get you, to get you on the fight card, and how many promos can I get from you? I mean, we got to push the show. So we're gonna need some interviews. So how many are you willing to do?
Well, it's a great solution, and hopefully the UFC takes a page out of your book. Now, if somehow this fight is put back, Conor McGregor does fight Diaz again, we have to get your prediction. How do you think the rematch goes? Who do you think wins?
It all depends on the time spent in the gym, and that's what Conor's trying to tell him. If you don't have the dedication, I mean, the last fight, Diaz training for a triathlon. Jeez, the freaking ways. No wonder he's in such great shape. One thing, he's a really good fighter, and then he comes in phenomenal conditioning. Criminy, how do you combat that? When you're flying around doing a bunch of interviews, more interviews than you do training. You just setting yourself up for an ass kicking.
If the fight doesn't work out for whatever reason, would you like to see George St. Pierre come back and fight Nate Diaz? And do you think that UFC 200 needs George St. Pierre on it to make it a historic night?
No. How many title fights are already on the card?
Well, we've got 2 confirmed. Maybe
you've got
3.
an interim one, and that's a rematch between Edgar and Aldo. And you got Miesha Tate versus Amanda Nunes. And people don't really know Amanda very well, so it's not really a fight that a lot of casual fans are going to be excited for. So at the moment, you've got a couple, but nothing massive.
I think these interim belts are a joke. I think they're a freaking joke. And they're just a way to lie to the people and bullshit them and tell them it's champion versus champion, and it's an important fight. That's all it's for. And I just say, all right, this guy's the number 1 contender, getting ready to fight the champion. Leave it at that. Those belts are meaningless.
Now, Don, obviously, it's going to be interesting what happens with the event, but we have to get your thoughts before we let you go on another event that was a little bit disappointing in Bellator 149, which had Kimbo Slice versus Dada 5000 and Ken Shamrock versus Royce Gracie. First off, what did you make of the Kimbo versus Dada fight? We know that Dada suffered from a health issue, but what did you think of Slice's performance in that fight? Because a lot of fans sort of had a lot of criticism about it. It didn't work out the way they thought it would.
I didn't see the show, buddy. I just saw, the knee from, I just saw the knee from Royce into Ken's belly button. It was nowhere near his pecker, and so there's no reason for that complaint. And then I saw the Dada and the Kimbo thing where the hell they were just laying down, sweating, and taking a nap. They wore themselves out in the first round. So shouldn't they have to just make that a 1-round fight?
I think a lot of people expected that to be a 1-round fight. Kimbo's now fighting your past opponent from Pride 34, James Thompson. I've got to get a prediction from you, Don. Who do you think will win that fight?
I think Thompson will win. I think, I like Kimbo. I really like Kimbo. Really nice man. I met him, several years ago, and I think he's a very polite guy. But I mean, if he's not going to train with Boss Rutan, he's going to have major problems. And James is smart enough. I'm hoping he's smart enough to get a proper training camp going and come after the situation. I mean, the only reason he lost the last time is because some fucking idiot in his corner forgot to drain his ear. I mean, he needs a whole new corner, a whole new team. If that's the idiot you're surrounding yourself with, man, I might as well walk in there with a beer and a cigar.
There's a lot of criticism about Kimbo. Obviously, there was the failed drug test. There was also his last few performances and the fact that he obviously looks like injuries are preventing him from having a proper training camp and stopping him from sort of looking the way he used to. Do you think he's got long left in the sport? And do you think that Bellator sort of putting him in these fights is good or bad for the promotion?
Well, I think it's good for the promotion because they're making money. You know, they're selling tickets. So that's great for the promotion. Now, whether Kimbo sticks around or not, that's up to him. I mean, because he come out of nowhere doing trailer park fights, and now he's on the international scene. He's making movies. So I think, he's done a hell of a job with what he did. And, making movies is a real good way to finish your world, finish your life.
And Don, just before we let you go, just wondering, we know you've been dealing with some health issues, but is the offer to have Frye versus Kimbo fight still on the table, or has it expired? Because we know not too long ago you were keen on facing Kimbo. Are you still interested, or are you past that?
Well, hell, I'm always interested in beating somebody up. I'm getting paid for it. So, yeah, if Scott Coker give me a phone call, I'd be interested in something like that. It looks like I'll take the winner between Kimbo and James Thompson, and I think it'll be the big fat white guy.
Well, there's definitely some history there, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, before we let you go, I know a lot of fans love to know what you're getting up to, and you mentioned your movie projects, but are there any other upcoming events or anything you'd like the fans to look out for over the next few months, or anything that you'd like them to check out?
Well, we did this show Street Level, and it was packed full of good actors and names, and had Danny Trejo in it for one, and Charisma Carpenter, and geez, I mean, it was just a hell of a show, and I hope they're able to sell it to Fox or somebody, because they made it for a movie or a TV show, either way, and I'm working on a project myself. I can't spill the beans, but I need to get that thing rolling and get that finished. And I think it'll be a good thing. It's a kind of a reality show.
Wow! Can you give us a hint about what kind of at least what the sort of theme is? What's the topic? What sort of reality are you covering, Don?
No, I'm not going to give you a hint.
All right. Well, I tried. All right. I basically asked you to spill the whole thing.
You have to wait for your money like everybody else.
Oh, man. You saw it coming. All right. Well, we'll be checking out Street Level. I mean, obviously, we hope it gets picked up, Don. And, guys, make sure to follow Don on Twitter at DonFryFight. And once again, Don, thank you so much for jumping on the show, chatting with us in your time. We hope Street Level gets picked up when we see it. We chat to you soon.
All right, ladies. Thanks a lot.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Smooth Benson Henderson. You're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest is coming off a very dominant performance over Ben Rothwell. He is the former UFC heavyweight champion, a multiple knockout of the night winner, and in general, one of the most devastating strikers in the UFC, Junior Cigano dos Santos. Welcome to Submission Radio. How's it going today?
I'm going good. It's a pleasure to be talking with you guys again.
Well, Junior, the fans were very happy with your performance and said it was the best you've looked since 2013 when you beat Mark Hunt. The question is, were you happy with your performance?
Yes, I am. I think we did everything we should do, to get the victory. I didn't put myself in risk at any time. It's always, there is always something, a little bit of risk when you're fighting against, a guy like Ben Rothwell. He's a big guy and very dangerous. But I try to move a lot. I try to avoid colliding against him, because he's too big and too powerful. So I moved a lot and used my boxing skills. I'm happy that I brought my coach, Luis Carlos Doria, to help me for this camp. So I was feeling very well for that fight, and everything worked out well.
For sure. Everybody noticed you look like the old Junior Dos Santos, but did you feel like the old Junior? Is this the best you felt in a while?
Yeah, I'm feeling like even better than the last Junior, the old Junior Dos Santos, because I think I got more experience now, For me, since my debut on UFC on 2008, I got some really good victories, I think 9 victories in the UFC heavyweight division. And then I didn't know how to deal with losing a fight. So after that, I had some negative results in my fights, and I had some pretty hard times, deal like having that kind of things happening with me. So I think right now I'm putting everything in the right place, and I'm taking advantage of this experience that I got, and now I think I'm gonna be everything what I want to be, a best Junior Dos Santos, a better Junior Dos Santos inside the octagon.
You mentioned those difficult times, Junior. I'm just wondering, how hard was it for you to deal with that period where you were losing, a couple of fights in a row there, and people were saying that they thought that you were done? How hard was it for you mentally to deal with that time in your career?
Yeah, I don't care about what people say, too much, but with the results that I had, some negative results with Cain Velasquez and also with Alistair Overeem, like pretty recent, and those things, and also the injuries that I had, all this time, that was really, really bad, man. A very serious, a very bad situation that I was going through, because I love to be Junior Dos Santos. I love to be who I am, to be fighting, to be giving my best all the time, to represent my country, and not just my country, but all the fans all over the world that enjoy watching me, So that was really hard for me. I was a little bit sad, deep in my heart. But now I think, like I said, I'm putting things in the right place, and I'm feeling that I have, great potential, to be champion again, and I will work for that.
Absolutely. And just going back to those times where things were difficult, I'm just wondering, did you ever get to a point where you thought that this may not be it for me anymore, that I might want to move on, possibly even retire if things don't turn around? Or did you always think that you'd get to this point where you could show people that you're still the same Junior Dos Santos?
No, I've never, thought about, retiring or anything of this kind of things, because like I said, I really believe in who I am. I knew that the things weren't going very well for me. I don't know why, bad energy or something like that. But I also knew that I'm a tough guy. I can do really well doing what I do. So I knew it was a matter of time, and I would be back to my winning streak. So now I'm here, and I'm looking forward to new challenges.
Sure. And we'll sort of look to the future in the moment. I'm just wondering, you say that you always had that confidence. When we spoke to Ben Rothwell, he mentioned how he felt like he needed to remind people why you were so dangerous. Did you feel like that as well? Did you think that people forgot how devastating you could be, and did you feel that you needed to remind everybody how dangerous Junior Dos Santos, really was?
Yeah, I think so. Because people, they like, how can I say that? People, they forgot about things very fast, They maybe, the most part of the people, they like to be negative, about everything. So I'm not that kind of person, and thank God I have a lot of great fans, man. They support me all the time, and every time I was, somebody was telling bad things about me, all these guys, this Junior Dos Santos fans, they were there to protect me, So I'm very thankful for that, and that kind of energy that I want to have with me, to motivate me and push me forward.
Yeah, certainly. And afterwards, after your fight with Ben Rothwell, you've been receiving a lot of praise for your performance, and people are very excited to envision you as a champion once again. I'm just wondering, how good does that feel, Junior, having everybody excited to see what happens next and excited to possibly see you fight for the title soon?
Yeah, it feels amazing, man, to have people that trust in you, that believe in you. Everything you say, that those people are there to believe in you. And also, I'm not that guy who stay like saying things, just saying things. I used to do things, inside the octagon. I used to prove everything what I say. So, and this time was one more time that I did this, So it's unbelievable to have that kind of people on my side believing in me and giving me their support. And it feels amazing. And I'm doing this, for sure I'm doing this for me and for my family, but I'm doing this for them too. Because I want to see them happy. I want to give them, a good show, and I want to honor their support.
So, Junior, it seems like you've been looking to reinvent yourself and evolve as a fighter. Talk to us about your journey over the last few years, where you moved from Team Nogueira over to Team Nova União briefly, and now to American Top Team. Why so many moves?
Yeah, I'm looking for to become a better fighter. So there in Brazil, I have great training. I have great people with me, but here in America, things are a little easier to happen. And also, ATT is a great team with a big infrastructure there. That they let me use everything. So it's a very important part, and also it's easier to have a better diet and to get every kind of vitamins and supplements that you need. In Brazil, it's pretty harder to get. So that's why I decided to come and try to learn a little bit of their way to fight. So also, it's I didn't left all the people that I work with before. They are still with me all the time, giving me advices and working together.
So we have to ask, Junior, have you finally found your permanent home in terms of training camp? Will you be doing all your camps at American Top Team from now on?
Yeah, I think so. I think I found it. And it's great, to feel that you're in a good place and in the right place, doing what you gotta do. And this last camp I did in ATT was way better than my first camp, So I know that in the future, things will work even better for me, and I'm gonna be very well prepared for every fight.
For sure. And obviously, you're coming off this fantastic win. The way you feel now, the way your preparation's going at ATT, and the way you looked against Ben Rothwell, I'm just wondering, would you want to avenge that loss and rematch Alistair Overeem? Because that was a fight that was years in the making, and obviously it didn't go your way, and there was a big rivalry there. Are you interested in a rematch, or have you sort of moved past that?
Yeah, I actually, I'm not thinking about that, but of course it would be great to have that rematch. I know Alistair Overeem is very good fighter. But yeah, it would be good to have that rematch. But I'm not, thinking too much about that. I don't pick opponents, and anyone that UFC put in front of me. And my main objective, my main goal is to become the champion again. So that's what I want. Everything will happen to get there. I'll be ready to do.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of Overeem, and before we look into the future, I'm just wondering, Junior, a lot of people not really sure what happened in your first fight with Alistair Overeem. Now that it's sort of a while down the track since it's happened, can you tell us what went wrong? What do you think exactly went wrong in that fight?
Well, yeah, it's hard. It's a very hard sport. There is always something, bothering you, and it's hard. I can remember the time I was 100% to be competing. In the day of the fight, I was 100%. I can't remember I fight any fight that I did this, that I was like this when I 100%. There is always something that injures or something in your mind or something not going very well. So I don't know, it's hard to say. He did better than me, he connected a good punch right in my chin, and I felt the punch. So and that's it. It was my first training camp there in ATT. Everything was different for me, and also a lot of things going on in Brazil too. So yeah, I think it's part. There's sometimes you're not able to show everything what you're capable to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of these times, and I wasn't feeling. Actually, I was okay, for the fight. I was prepared, but he did better than me.
Well, coming off this win, you're in an interesting position at the moment because Ben was on a 4-fight win streak. He had a lot of momentum behind him, and he looked as maybe he'll be the next title contender, and you just beat him. There's also Cain Velasquez and Overeem who look like they're close to title shots. Where do you think you stand in the division? Where does this win over Ben put you?
Well, I think right in the top, where I was before, because I have a long history in this division. I already fought so many guys. And, of course, there's two guys that maybe I can have the rematch or with Velasquez or Alistair Overeem. But I'll do everything what I need to do to get my title shot again, And let's see what's going to happen now, because I'm feeling good, and I want to do whatever I need to do, So let's see what's going to happen. Their fights now. They're both fighting now, but pretty soon. And, well, let's see. But I'm not, I want to fight for the title. But if I have to do one more fight to fight for the title, that's okay. I don't really, I'm not spending my energy in thinking about that right now,
Mm-hmm.
I know I need to get some positive results, like I did now with Ben Rothwell, and I'm doing this, getting these positive results. I'll have my title shot for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And because I was going to say, you're sort of talking about Alistair Overeem and Cain Velasquez. We were going to suggest maybe someone like an Andrey Arlovski or Travis Brown. I know they've got fights, but depending on how they sort of go next, do you think you're probably a little bit closer to sort of fighting Cain Velasquez or an Overeem as opposed to Travis Brown or Arlovski?
Well, yeah, to fight with this guy, it can happen. It can happen for sure. But if Travis Brown wins and Andrey Arlovski wins, then I don't see anyone else to fight for the title but me, because who's gonna be fighting for the title, with the winner between Miocic and Werdum? There is no one else, I think, over there, to fight with them, and would be a great opportunity for me, If both Cain Velasquez and Alistair Overeem lose their fights, I think it's me.
Let me just quickly ask you about Velasquez, because you guys have had a very interesting story, obviously fighting each other a number of times. In your last fight, however, a lot of people were saying that it was a very difficult fight to watch because of all the punishment that Velasquez unleashed during that fight. If you guys did have another one, how do you see a fight between you and Velasquez going again if you did get to fight him again?
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I want to do this, man. I want to do this because Cain Velasquez is a great opponent, a great fighter, and he did very well in our last two fights, and he beat me up very bad. But people were impressed with my face, because I was with a lot of swelling, but I can tell you that wasn't very bad. I got swelling pretty easy, and I got cut pretty easy too. So it's not good for me. But yeah, for sure it was a hard fight, for us. But I want to fight him again. If he continue as a good challenge for me, of course. If he starts losing fight, of course I don't want to fight him anymore because he's not gonna add anything for my career.
Yeah.
But I think his last fight against Fabricio Werdum was surprised me a lot because he was completely different, as the Velasquez that everybody knows, because Velasquez never gets tired. In that fight, he was exhausted in the first round. So I was wondering what happened with that, And let's see now with how it's gonna be, how he's gonna do with Travis Brownie, and then if we have a rematch, it's gonna be good, man. I think in my last fight with him, I respect him too much. I respect his grapple game too much, because he's good on that. But man, I got my black belt jiu-jitsu. I can wrestle pretty well too. Of course, I'm not gonna beat him in wrestling, but I can do pretty well. So I have to be more confident and put everything together to beat him. And I think I'm ready to do this now. I can understand this better now, and let's wait. If this rematch happens, you guys will see.
And a lot of people not sure whether Cain Velasquez will ever look like his old self after, obviously, that fight with Werdum that you mentioned where he looked different, and then quite recently having another injury and having to pull out of the fight. Do you think we'll see the same Cain Velasquez when he finally does return to the octagon?
Well, I hope so, man. I hope so, because I used to like, to watch his fights. he put in a lot of pressure against his opponents. And wow, it's a good competitor, I think we did some great battles, and we can do a little bit more of that. So I hope that he can come back very well for this fight against Travis Brownie. But yeah, like you said, I like Werdum didn't fight the same Cain Velasquez I fought. That's what I think.
Junior, we really appreciate the time you're giving us. We'll let you go in just a moment. We just got a couple more quick questions about just the title picture in general in the heavyweight division. I mean, one thing is you hold an 80-second victory over the current champion Fabricio Werdum, not to mention a victory over Stipe as well. Does that make you extra confident knowing that if you do get a title shot, you could potentially beat either champion again?
Oh yeah, for sure. I used to watch his fights a lot. All the heavyweight fights that are on top of the division. I used to watch his fights and how they are doing. And I think Miocic is coming from a great moment. He's very confident right now. After that loss against me, he seems like he's getting better. And more. What he did with Andrey Koreshkov now was impressive. He went there and knocked him out like this, So it was fast, and he's doing very well. And I think he got an advantage fighting against Werdum, because Werdum is a guy that doesn't take nobody down. He just submit people when people take him down. And talking about their stand-up game, I see Miocic being better than him, Of course, Werdum fight. Werdum is doing very well in his career right now. But, yeah, I think Miocic has a little advantage on that fight. And I would love to face any one of them, especially for the title. That would be amazing to be fighting against them again. And I really hope that I'm feeling this, if Miocic wins, it's better for me, because man, they're doing all the time. He start to talk too much, and he takes too much time to fight again, and start to do a lot of things without, but not like defending his title. So I think if he wins the fight, it's gonna be good, to face him. But I think it's better for me if Miocic wins.
And I have to ask, if Werdum does win and you do get a rematch against him, how do you think that rematch would go? Would it be as quick as the first one where you knocked him out pretty quickly?
I would knock him out pretty quick, man. He got better. He's a better stand-up fighter now. His jiu-jitsu is the best on the heavyweight division. There is no doubt about that. But as a striker, he improved. He improved a lot. But he's still a jiu-jitsu fighter, man. If I fight him, I will knock him out like pretty fast, maybe in the first or second round. Again, I was watching sometimes his fight against Cain Velasquez, and that he became the champion. Man, I can see. He's doing a little better on his stand-up game, but just a little better. He's still a jiu-jitsu fighter. Talking about a stand-up striking. I really believe, and I'm very confident that I could knock him out again.
There you go. Your confidence is inspiring us, Junior, and you're exciting us. As we let you go, just wondering, when do you see yourself returning to the octagon? You got this win over Ben Rothwell. When are you looking to come back? And also, will you be at UFC 198 to watch the fight live?
Yeah, I'm to the UFC 198. I'm gonna be commentating on TV there in Brazil. It's
wow.
Extra job that I have.
Yeah.
That I have there in Brazil. And can you imagine that? I'm gonna be commentating that fight. So I have a lot of things to tell people.
That's exciting. You gotta sell the fight, man. When you're commentating, tell everyone how you want the rematch.
That's it. But it's gonna be good. I'm having a great experience doing that, and I'm gonna enjoy that a lot. To be doing this, and also because I'm gonna be paying a lot of attention on that fight. About becoming, fighting again. I'm not sure right now. I'm just taking care of some things, doing some exams here. To check if everything is all right with me. And I want to fight as soon as possible. Like I told you guys before, I want to fight 3 times this year. So I already fought one, and let's see now what's going to happen.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to see what happens and obviously who you get matched up against. Junior, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. Your English is vastly improved, and I know a lot of people from Brazil. Sort of they put a lot of work into improving their English, and you've done a tremendous job with that. Guys, don't forget to follow Junior on Twitter at Junior_Tagano. And again, thank you so much for your time today, Junior. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure to be talking with you again. Talk to you soon.
This is Diego Sanchez, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, joining us here on Submission Radio to help us break down this crazy week in MMA and UFC 197 is a friend of the show that you may know from his great articles on Fox Sports, Elias Cepeda. Welcome back to Submission Radio.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Well, the pleasure's all ours. Now, we don't have much time, and there's a lot to get through, so let's quickly jump into the craziness that's been going on. I wanted to start off with Bellator. As everybody may or may not know, Benson Henderson recently debuted at Bellator 153, and if you missed it, Benson lost a 5-round decision to current champ Andrey Koreshkov, who pretty much dominated him for 5 rounds. It was a terrible way for Benson to debut in the promotion. We don't really have the time to talk about what you guys thought of the fight, but in terms of implications, I want to go around and find out how devastating was this loss to Bellator and Benson Henderson. Even though he showed toughness and heart, how much hype and steam does he lose after this performance? I want to go to you first, Elias. What did you think?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would want to say it hurts them both a bit. But, maybe they had some different goals or expectations to begin with because they even just allowed him to fight at welterweight, which I thought that was a little bit strange. I don't know. I don't know if they assumed he would dominate at welterweight, but I don't think that's a great assumption. I think there's a big weight gap between 155 and 170, and even a great fighter like Benson Henderson is going to have trouble with people that are far from maybe world championship true world championship level when they go up for that type of weight. So I don't know. I mean, I guess if they're in it for the long haul with Benson, if they really like him, his personality, his style, which I hope so. I mean, that's entirely possible, I guess. Then as long as he's healthy and they want to keep him busy, then maybe they could just kind of start things from scratch and back at lightweight, and maybe the problems or the effect could be mitigated there. But otherwise, though, I mean, yeah, I would think you would. It's a little bit of a roadblock.
I'm pretty much with you, man. I wouldn't say it's actually devastating at all. I think, if anything, it adds legitimacy to Bellator's talent. I mean, when you're known primarily for putting on freak show fights and making questionable signings, it's good to remind people that you still have talented fighters that are capable of beating, former UFC champions. And yeah, you're right. The thing is to remember that this fight was at welterweight. And, even though he has competed there on occasion, it's not his natural weight class. And even the guys that he beat, like Brendan Thatch and... man, who's the other guy he beat? His name is escaping me. Gamebred. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, Masvidal.
Jorge Masvidal. Yeah. Those guys aren't, necessarily champions. So I think all roads at the moment lead to him fighting Will Brooks. And he may need to take a fight beforehand, maybe like a title eliminator. But eventually, I mean, he'll fight Will Brooks and he may even be able to win that belt. There's a good chance he can. So I don't think it's really a bad thing. The reason why he took that fight is because that was the quickest fight. Had he waited for Will Brooks, there would have been a bit of time frame, and Benson just wanted to get in there as soon as possible. So, I mean, the only downside to losing for Benson is that he lost to a guy that most fans don't really know about, but all it really shows is that on this night, he wasn't good enough to hold the belt above his natural weight class, and I think that says more about Koreshkov than Benson Henderson.
There you guys. So very interesting to see what happens to him next. Hopefully he holds off his military duties for a few more fights so we can see him versus Will Brooks, because that would be a great fight. But let's move on to the UFC action. UFC 197 was almost overshadowed by the commotion surrounding Conor McGregor and UFC 200. Now, before we discuss our thoughts on everything that's happened, let's go through some of the key matchups from the event first. Yair Rodriguez kicked off the card by finishing Andre Tachifili with a crazy flying head kick. But the big fight for all the Aussie fans was Robert Whittaker's victory over the super underrated and tough Rafael Natal. Elias, what did you think of Whittaker's performance and return to fighting overseas in Las Vegas?
I thought he looked great. I thought he did well. He did beat a really good fighter in Natal, and he looked better as the fight went on. He looked like a guy that is cerebral and able to make little adjustments or target certain areas of weakness or something that an opponent's given him. So I thought it was great. I thought, hopefully a lot of people were watching, and if so, they got to see a really kind of tough, brutal fight, and on both ends, right? Like Whittaker, he got his leg grinded up like hamburger, but he was still able to fight well afterwards, and he just rocked Natal over and over, but Sapo wouldn't go away. So I thought it was a really good, tough fight, a really brutal fight for both men. And if people were watching, hopefully the people all over the world will start realizing that the Whittaker is a legitimate prospect and rising contender.
Well, Casper, many felt that Natal was a pretty average matchup for Whittaker, considering he's a tough challenge, but doesn't really move Rob's name up in the rankings. Who do you think should be next for him?
Yeah, Lyoto Machida would have been perfect, and before this fight, people were talking about him fighting Machida, but it looks like he's going away for a long time, unfortunately. I think that, he's got a nice streak going. The only thing he needs now is a name on his resume, and I think that's what the UFC are waiting for. They're not going to, propel him into title contention till more people know about him, and he's got a victory over, a big name. I think that's why he's seeing him on pay-per-view, and I don't think you'll necessarily see him on these little local cards anymore, unless he's main eventing, and again, it's against a big name. So there's a few options. You got Gegard Mousasi and Derek Brunson. I mean, Derek is kind of, I think, also being groomed for a potential title shot and, contendership. There's Michael Bisping, but I think Bisping's a lot further ahead now, and they don't really want to risk, a big already guaranteed title fight against, say, Rockhold or Weidman. There's Talis Leites, but again, if Leites beats him, you got Leites, who probably isn't going to be a contender. He's derailed Whittaker. I don't know, I'm thinking Dan Henderson or Hector Lombard, because I think both are winnable fights, both are decent names, and I think at this point, Dan Henderson, you can sort of use him to build up other fighters. I know he doesn't have a lot left, and I don't know if he'd be down for that, but he is intrigued by exciting fights. He didn't want to fight Tim Kennedy because he thinks it'd be a bit of a grapple fest, but I think he'd be excited to stand there and trade against Robert Whittaker, and, he's got a good chance to knock him out. But I think a win over Dan, I think that sort of propels Rob. I think he's got one. I think he's probably got at least 2 fights before you see him fighting for a title, at least.
Well, Dan Henderson versus Robert Whittaker to headline the card, that possible card at Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne could be a good idea. But Elias, I want to know, how much do fans know about Robert Whittaker overseas? I mean, over here in Australia, people love him. He's a big, he's got a big fan base down here. But overseas in America, are people taking notice of him? Does he have much of a name?
Yeah, my sense is that he doesn't have any real celebrity among fight fans in the U.S. I think serious fight fans and serious followers of the sport that happen to be American certainly know him and have been watching him. But yeah, I don't think he's got any casual real name recognition. I could be wrong, but I think that's my guess. And I think most fighters don't at this point. We have so many events a year that most people that aren't headlining cards that are happening in America aren't really getting that type of name recognition yet. But I think serious fight fans definitely know who we are. I just think he doesn't have the casual name recognition buzz. And yeah, he was right. It's not going to happen until he fights someone who does have that type of celebrity, unfortunately.
Man, I got to jump in real quick. You know who Robert Whittaker would be a perfect candidate for? Not who, but what? I think he'd be perfect for Twitch, because we've spoken to him many times, and he's a big-time introvert, as most people will know. And the main thing that he does in his days is he plays video games all day long when he's not, training and taking care of his family and he's got a kid. He plays video games. It'd be the perfect way to connect with fans, set up a Twitch channel, earn some money on the side, and, people sort of find out a little bit more about Robert Whittaker.
It's a really good idea.
Submission Radio should make a percentage of that idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Come on, Rob. And Rob also did many great technique of the weeks for Submission Radio. So guys, jump on the channel, check that out. But it was already the night of the kicks. And this was before, guys, we even got to Edson Barbosa versus Anthony Pettis. It was a matchup that I personally was very, very excited for. Both guys are black belts in Taekwondo, both throwing crazy kicks. Have to get your thoughts first, Elias. What did you think of the fight?
Well, I thought it was a great technical fight. I think Barbosa was just a little bit quicker in most of the exchanges, a little bit quicker with his inside leg kicks especially, and a little bit quicker with his punch combinations, and that made the difference. I think it was an impressive victory. I still think, I think it was hard and close fought, but yeah, I think Barbosa is a little bit quicker at this point, or at least let's say just in that fight, in my opinion, and that's really what made the difference between two guys that are, like you said, really really good black belts in a kicking heavy style and skilled.
Yeah, no, it was certainly one of those situations where kicks were flying, and Anthony Pettis went for some crazy kicks himself, but it was a third loss in a row for Pettis and a big win for Barbosa. Casper, I'm wondering what's next for both fighters. Who would you like to see them face next?
Oh, man, Pettis has fallen on some seriously hard times. He's gone from being called one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the world to losing his title to losing 2 more afterwards and being on a 3-fight losing streak. So it looks worse when you think about the fact that Tony Ferguson recently beat Barbosa, and Cowboy Cerrone, who Pettis destroyed, also beat him rather quickly. So Pettis is really going to have to climb the ladder to get anywhere near title contention, especially in a crowded and always evolving division like lightweight. I think Michael Johnson or Michael Chiesa and maybe even Beneil Dariush, although I think I'd rather see Chiesa face Barbosa. Now, for those who say go to Bellator, don't be ridiculous. I think, the UFC were very keen to keep Benson Henderson. You think they wouldn't try to hang on to Pettis? I mean, he's nowhere near that far gone, and there's plenty of winnable fights from the UFC. Plenty. He just needs to, get his mind right and reset. So, between those 3 guys, I think Barbosa and Chiesa would be a fun fight, and I think Michael Johnson or Beneil Dariush for Anthony Pettis.
Interesting to see what happens with both guys next. Let's jump to the co-main event of the evening. Demetrius Johnson was able to finish Henry Cejudo in the first round. I mean, the fight just blew fans away who expected Cejudo to at least present a challenge for Demetrius in the first few rounds. Not only did DJ get Cejudo out of the ring in the first round, but he has now officially cleaned out the division. If you're the UFC, what do you do now with Demetrius, who said multiple times that he likes to stay busy and doesn't want to wait on the sidelines? Elias, I have to go with you first. I mean, the man has cleaned out the division. He's looking great, but what do you do with him next?
I think they take advantage of the fact that a lot of fight fans, casual fight fans, are probably now just starting to take notice of Demetrius Johnson, which is insane because I mean he's already one of the most dominant champions ever. But I think you ride that wave, and you look at it maybe as a blessing that he's beating the toughest people in the division. You just give him the next guy and the next guy and the next guy, and hopefully he continues to kind of be like a showcase, exciting fight like he's been doing. And then you have another rising star that if they actually start to give this guy some attention, he might actually become a real star. I mean, I think he's charismatic. With his words, he's well spoken. I think he's obviously an incredible fighter. I think he's well rounded, and he's finishes fights. He finishes the toughest guys in the world. So I actually think the UFC should just go ahead and kind of just give him the next guy, and maybe not give him like an 18th fight with Joe Benavidez, who's probably deserving, but like just give him, the number 3 guy next or the number 2 guy, and just let DJ kind of showcase his skills now that hopefully people finally got to see him and pay attention to him since he was on a Jon Jones card and since he finished so spectacularly.
Interesting. I think the UFC have very, very few options other than make that third fight against Benavidez or have him take a super fight at bantamweight because he doesn't want to, wait around. The only other person who's even close in the rankings who hasn't faced Johnson yet, and this is sort of, to your point, Elias, is Jussier Formiga. But then again, he lost his last fight to Cejudo. Benavidez, on the other hand, is on a five-fight winning streak, so he deserves it the most. But he did, however, get viciously KO'd when they last met. And he's really the only option by default. The whole Tough 24 concept looks like it may have been scrapped, but even then it was a weird situation because given Ultimate Fighter's history and the mixed success of past winners, who would really believe that the winner would have a chance at beating Demetrius Johnson, especially, the way he's been so dominant and dispatched of Cejudo. I actually think it would have made the UFC's lives a lot easier if Johnson either lost the fight or the fight was close, because then there'd be an opportunity for a rematch, and that will buy time for the division to sort of create new contenders. But at this point, it's really the Benavidez 3 or bantamweight, especially if Johnson doesn't want to wait around, which, when we spoke to him on the show about how the Tough 24 finale was meant to be in December, he didn't want to wait around. He wants to fight in September or around about then, and then maybe again in February. So really isn't very many options. Benavidez or 135.
I got this feeling from Dana White at the post-fight press conference that things didn't go to plan with Tough 24, almost like when they looked at the talent that arrived, they thought, I don't know if this is going to work out. Did you guys kind of get that feeling? I don't know, post-fight when he was discussing it, just seems like talent-wise they didn't get what they were looking for when it came to the cast of the show.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell they were looking for, because I mean it was a weird situation where they didn't even talk to Demetrius Johnson, according to Johnson, about it, which is absurd. We don't really know what they were doing. Were they trying to get like an unknown prospect and give him like a Rocky type shot, or were they going to include existing contenders like Benavidez in this show? Like, I don't know what they were looking for. But yeah, I don't know if it was they didn't like the talent they got, which wouldn't surprise me. Like if you're having trouble finding people to compete with Demetrius Johnson within the existing division, you're certainly not going to find someone who's going to be plausible outside of the UFC. I don't think right now, who looks good and seems like a threat. Or I don't know if it was just that Johnson stood up for himself and said, yeah, that's cute that you guys have a whole show planned on what to do with my title next, but it's my title, and that's a ridiculous concept, and maybe he's the one that kind of squashed it. But I'm not sure. I think you're right that Dana White was giving off that vibe, but I wonder if it was that and a combination of some other stuff or what.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a combination, but I just don't feel like Demetrius has that power yet. Will the UFC care what the champion has to think about what's going to be happening in the future of the division? But we'll have to see what happens, because I'm very interested. Dana White said we'll see, which means, yeah, things aren't going to plan right now. Let's move on to the main event. Jon Jones struggled in his UFC return against OSP, and while he still dominated the fight and was able to win the decision, many fans were disappointed by his performance. I want to go around the table and ask how much of the struggle was due to Jon's ring rust and how much of it was to OSP bringing in an unorthodox style that was hard to deal with. Elias, you go first, my man.
I mean, I don't know. I would guess something around 50-50. I think OSP is no punk, and he's a big, long, rangy, hard to predict guy, and I bet it doesn't tickle when he hits you either. So I think I got to give him credit for being there, for not going away, for lasting the whole time. We really haven't seen Jon face too many people that were anywhere near his size, and when he does, I'm sure it's not easy. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I can't imagine it's easy to come back after that long off and just smoke someone that's a legitimate top 5 or 4 contender. That's why I was actually, if I was like in Jon Jones's camp, I actually thought it was good for him to face someone like OSP instead of going straight to Daniel Cormier, because I think DC is right that this probably would have been his best chance to beat Jones. But anyway, back to your original question, I wouldn't be surprised if both factors really played a really big role in what was a very good performance, but yeah, it certainly wasn't what maybe people thought he could have done at his best.
Yeah, I mean, he broke OSP's arm. I think a lot of people, including ourselves, I thought he was going to finish OSP in 2. I think the bar was set so high for Jon Jones, it was almost unattainable. People forgot that, he did have all these things. I think there was a few factors. One of them is cage rust. I mean, before this, Jones' biggest break between fights was 9 months, and that was, Glover and Cormier. And now this is 15. You could see that Jones was hesitant. His timing was off, at least, in the first 3 rounds. The other thing I think is that Jones really thrives on having a lot of time to prepare for his opponents and just studying them. I think that's exactly why he didn't want to take the short notice fight against Chael Sonnen at 151, because he wanted to, avoid a performance exactly like this. And he said as much. He said, he wants to sort of be greatness in the cage every time he steps in. He wants to leave that kind of legacy. And I think, for Jones, 3 weeks isn't enough time to really craft and execute the perfect game plan. He needs months of just constantly studying his opponent. And, you can sort of look to his win over Shogun and say, well, that was 6 weeks' notice. Yeah, but he didn't have to deal with cage rust. Some fighters do fantastic on short notice. They do even better than usual. Others don't. Dennis, and you and me are a perfect example. You love stuff off the cuff, out of nowhere, no preparation, just bam, jump straight in there. I'm the opposite. I'm more like, prepare as much. I always feel underprepared, and yeah, I think it's the same thing with fighters as well. And I think with OSP's long reach and unorthodox style, I don't think Jones was confident with his timing enough to sort of take risks and give the performance that a lot of people, including ourselves, may have expected from him.
Well, Elias, OSP has earned a lot of respect from fans and media after he was able to not only last but also have some success against Jones in this fight with a little bit of notice. What has this done for his career, in your opinion?
I hope it gives it a boost, because when I look at that fight, I see a guy that I believe if he had been in better condition, and there's no way he was in optimal condition on 3 weeks' notice. I've been next to OSP in passing, like when he's in between fights, and I wouldn't doubt if the guy's 250 pounds. Like, so he had I bet he had to. I mean, I don't know, but that's what it seems like to me. He had to lose a lot of weight, right? He probably had to focus on that. So I see a guy that if he had his conditioning about him for all 5 rounds, probably could have fought at least to pop back up after most of Jon Jones's takedowns. And we saw what happens when he did pop back up from them early. It was an interesting fight, and Jon was never able to dominate until he was able to hold him down. So I think OSP proved that he has what it takes to fight anyone in the world close, which says a lot, because we've seen him beat some of the best in the world before, but do it really quick. And so we know he can be a shocker and a surpriser and finish a fight. But to see that his skills have developed to the point where he could actually wrestle a little bit with someone like Jon Jones, I mean, I think that tells us something new about him.
Yeah, I mean, as DC already said, he got the rub. It's actually one of the best things that could have happened to his career. I mean, he took a guy that many considered the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, the distance. He got more spotlight on him than ever before. He felt the pressure of fighting for a title and main eventing a pay-per-view, and it's a lot better, in my opinion, than winning against, say, a middle-of-the-road light heavyweight or potentially losing. And I think it's an opportunity that he may not have gotten otherwise. We've seen him struggle against the elite at 205, so who knows if he would have ever gotten that title shot. But, hey, if he gets on a decent streak, and it opens up a possibility for a rematch, considering that he took the fight on 3 weeks' notice. Other than that, other than the title and the actual fight itself, wins all around for OSP, I reckon.
It's a feather in the cap for OSP, and let's be honest, I mean, not that many people big on him and thinking he'd be able to survive against Jon Jones. So almost that Alexander Gustafsson DC rub, not quite as much because he didn't come close to beating Jones, but still had some success. Now people are talking about DC versus Jones potentially making its way onto UFC 200. I need to find out from you, Elias, first. Would you like to see this fight on the card, and would it be enough to save it?
I think it would be enough to save it, and I don't really want to see it on this card. I know that's a little weird. I mean, I'd love to see those guys fight any day of the week. Like if I saw them across the street, I'd love to see them fight. but
Just out in the parking lot.
I'd plop down $50 on the sidewalk and say, "Here, let's go." But I think, like, I don't know the extent of DC's injury. You know, I'm not in his camp or anything like that. But any type of injury that would force him to pull out, you know, in late April, I think fighting in early July it will be a bit of a rush. And for that matter, there's a possibility that fighting again so soon for Jones could be tough. Again, as well, we may not see the best out of him after going 5 rounds in a long training camp. You know, maybe it'll be good, he'll be sharp, but I'd rather see them both start a camp really healthy and have a good long camp and give the best showing of one another. But yeah, I mean, that said, I'd watch those guys any day of the week.
That's an interesting theory. I didn't realize how soon UFC 200 actually is. You got all these events in between, and it feels like it's so much longer. Yeah. But yeah, it's only like, what, 2 months and a bit. Look, as far as if it does happen, I mean, look, Jones's performance actually has gotten me more excited for the DC rematch, because before I was leaning a lot more heavily on Jones beating DC. Now I'm a little bit unsure. I mean, you would think that Jones got all the kinks out at UFC 197 and he'll be back to his usual ways against DC, you know, but what if he didn't? What if he gives Cormier, you know, the confidence seeing him like that maybe he didn't have in the first fight? You just never know. I mean, crazy things have happened. Anyway, I'm totally down for this fight being on UFC 200 if they, I guess, have enough time to prepare, which they probably won't. The more important question, does it save the card? No, it's still a rematch, and as we've said before, the thing that UFC 200 is missing is that once-in-a-lifetime special fight, or as you perfectly described it, Dennis, a big fuck-off super fight. So, you know, if GSP is on the card as well as DC Jones too, then yeah, I think the card's safe, but if not, then it's really just making a good thing of a bad situation. Don't forget, DC versus Jon Jones 1 did around 800,000 pay-per-view buys, and that was after the press conference brawl. So, you know, it's a step down from the McGregor-Diaz fight.
Hashtag big fuck off super fights. I mean, let's get t-shirts going. Yeah, I agree, guys. I agree that I'd be happy to see it at UFC 200, but again, yeah, I think it does need something else apart from that fight to make it special. It's definitely not at the level that Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor would have been in terms of publicity and casual fans getting excited, but we'll see what Dana White has cooking, because again, when people asked him what was the other fight that he's got planning, he said, "We'll see. We're working on something." So,
as he usually does.
So that means either something will happen or nothing will happen,
exactly,
as we've seen from history. Now, speaking of UFC 200, as everybody knows by now, Conor McGregor was pulled from the main event against Nate Diaz, and the UFC and McGregor couldn't agree on a reduced media schedule recently. McGregor released a statement recently where he said, "I will always play the game and play it better than anybody, but just for this one, where I am coming off a loss, I ask for some leeway where I can train and focus. I did not shut down all media requests. I simply wanted a slight adjustment." He also said in the same statement, "I feel the $400 million I have generated for the company in my last 3 events, all inside 8 months, is enough to get me this slight leeway. I'm still ready to go for UFC 200. Now, in response, Dana White has said that the promotion is a part of the fight game and is a part of McGregor's job when he accepts a fight. The question here is, do you think after everything McGregor has done with the UFC, he deserves some leeway in the amount of press he needs to do for this fight? Elias, it's a big question, a lot to process, but I'll go with you first. What do you think about this complicated cookie?
Short answer is to that question for me is yes. Longer answer involves a little bit of a deeper issue, and that is that I actually feel that the UFC has no right to, on the one hand, classify these guys and girls as independent contractors rather than full employees who are eligible for all sorts of benefits, whether it be unemployment insurance or pensions and things of that nature, to say nothing of collective bargaining. I think it has no right to put the types of requirements that has effectively been doing in independent contractors. That includes uniforms. That includes year-round enhanced drug testing. And I do believe that includes what are, in effect, unlimited media obligation requests completely on the UFC's own schedule. Because if what we're hearing from Dana and Conor is correct, Conor asked to move a media tour from April to May for a fight in July, and that's what Dana White just could not abide. This is not really about this particular fight. It's about the larger issue of the UFC's basically unlimited power, in effect, it has over people that don't have the commensurate types of benefits. So I think the UFC is actually I think the UFC is definitely a little bit beyond what it probably could maintain were this type of issue and these types of issues ever to make their way to the courts the way they're kind of doing. And I wrote a little bit about this last week, the way they're doing with Uber, which is I'm barely learning about Uber myself here. I don't know if they have them all over the world.
You mean like Uber drivers, right?
Uber drivers,
yeah.
They're suing and saying, listen, with the requirements that the company's putting on us, that we have to do X, Y, Z, A, B, and C, we are and should be, in effect, employees afforded certain rights and benefits with that. And Uber says, no, you're not. You're independent contractors. So I think that's the real large fight here. If you look at that press conference, we saw all sorts of people, including reporters who never deign to ask a real follow-up question to Dana White, say, basically, Dana, what the hell are you talking about? You know, like you're saying it's commercials. Well, you haven't filmed commercials with Nate yet anyway, so you're going to do more. You're saying it's unfair to the rest of the fighters, but the fighters are saying, at least Nate Diaz was saying, he doesn't care. Like, what? Why don't you make this fight? And I believe the reason is because this is a battle about something deeper. It's about some real core and all-encompassing labor relations issues, basically. And the UFC right now, or maybe for the next few years, if it continues to creep its way into the mainstream, is gonna find that it's either going to go in one direction or the other. It's either going to go in the direction of other major sports leagues and organizations and have to welcome things like collective bargaining and added rights like pensions and stuff for its athletes, or it's going to try to hold and dig in its heels like I believe they're doing now. And if that's the case, I think ultimately they're just going to have to find themselves in court. I don't know how that's going to turn out. I'm not a labor attorney or attorney of any kind. But I think that's exactly the type of issue that we're seeing in other industries and other fields going to court. So anyway, that's my long-winded answer. Sorry about that.
I love it, man. And the perspective of a fighter like yourself, Elias, is always appreciated. It's something that Dennis and I can't really relate to. So I'm really glad you said that. And that was like, it was an epic promo. We're always down for that on this show.
Thanks, guys.
I'll give my sort of quick sort of layman answer. I think if anyone deserves it, it is McGregor. If we're talking leeway from media, I mean, he's done more promotion than anyone else, with the exception of maybe Ronda Rousey. She has appeared on a lot of daytime shows. I don't know. Not only that, he's brought a lot of new fans to the sport. He's saved cards and taken short notice fights. Even the very fight that cost him a loss was short notice. Not that I'm saying that's the reason for it. And for that fight, he did double media. He had to promote for RDA, and then he had to promote for Nate Diaz. He's basically rolled with the punches a lot of times, made the company a lot of money. So you would think, maybe he's owed a favor or two. And from what we've known, it's not like he wasn't going to do any media. Like you mentioned, Elias, he was still going to do the New York presser. And I don't think you need all that much footage when it comes to McGregor. That one press conference, it would have given the UFC plenty of footage to play with and market. So while I understand some people calling Conor a diva, I don't think both parties are completely innocent, but I don't think it's that simple. And it seems like in a lot of ways, whether you like the guy or don't, he's bent over backwards for the company many times and done them a lot of right. I can't stress the fact that he saved these cards, and I do think he deserves some leeway.
And to your point, Elias, I think that this should have been settled behind closed doors quietly, where the UFC just give them that leeway, because I feel like they've created more damage for their brand by making this go public. Because again, like you mentioned, with everything that could happen court-wise, it just adds fuel to the fire. And they could have just very easily created some excuses for Conor not coming to every press conference and explained that he doesn't need to be there, which people would have bought because that's what everybody thinks anyway. And this sort of takes this sort of takes me to the next statement, guys. I mean, McGregor also said 50 world tours, 200 press conferences, 1 million interviews, 2 million photo shoots, and at the end of it, I'm left looking down the barrel of a lance, staring defeat in the face, thinking of nothing but my incorrect fight preparations, and many distractions that led to this. Nothing else was going through my mind. It's time to go back and live the life that got me this life. Sitting in a car on the way to some dump in Connecticut or somewhere to speak to Tim and Susie on the Nobody Gives a Fuck morning show did not get me this life. Talking to some lady that deep down doesn't give a fuck about what I'm doing, but just wants some sound bites she can maybe get her little tight ass a nice raise. And I'm cool with that too. I've been giving you all raises, but I need to focus on me now. And these morning shows and these media tours, I have to ask you guys, is this essential to promoting UFC 200? Does the UFC need a media world tour to promote UFC 200? You brought this up before, Casper. I mean, they've done it with certain fighters, but does Conor McGregor have a point? Does he need to be on these Tim and Susie morning shows to promote the event? I'll go with you first, Elias.
Yeah, I don't think they do. No, not anymore. I think that type of stuff does have an impact, and I think that's why they work it so much when they've got someone like Conor. So I'm not saying that type of promotion, even in local markets, doesn't have an impact. I'm sure it does. But no, I don't think that they need it at this point. I think Conor is absolutely right that his tweet increased the promotion probably more than 2 or 3 media tours could have done. So, yeah, I think he's absolutely right, and I think that's what scares the UFC because so far their mechanisms, their machinations have been completely necessary to selling these fights, and now you've got someone who's actually becoming a big enough star where, like a true celebrity, he can affect things through a Twitter account. And by the way, I wish I could write anything as well as Conor McGregor writes on social media. That shit was awesome, by the way. Like, that's pretty good writing.
Which one, the Facebook post?
The Facebook post is pretty solid. I mean, that was pretty good. He made his points. It was very funny. I thought it was really good. It
was touching, yeah. It hit right in the feels. And just sort of going back on what you said, Dennis, as far as taking this public. I mean, apparently this thing was sort of being hashed out behind the scenes. I don't know if they were coming to an agreement, but it was Conor McGregor who sort of made this public, and everyone, whoa, he's retiring. What's going on here? And then, obviously they had the press conference, and everyone pounced on Dana White and the UFC. Not that there's anything wrong with that, as you'd expect, but I pretty much agree with you, Elias. The one thing I will quickly note about, because you covered it well, I actually disagree with Conor McGregor regarding his shot at the media. Not a bad shot, but a slight shot. And Tim and Susie is saying that it didn't give him this life. In a lot of ways, I think it did, because you can give Conor all the props in the world for what he's accomplished in the cage itself, but the truth is, that's not what makes him different or rich. Plenty of fighters have scored impressive wins in the cage and aren't as rich or as popular as McGregor. The thing that makes him so different is his promoting skills. In the Tim and Susie shows, they are the platforms for him to promote himself on. Having said that, I think that Conor now has reached the level where, his fights kind of sell themselves. And, you mentioned that tweet. It got over 160,000 retweets. Just goes to show how popular he really is. It's insane. What was Kobe's tweet? Was it 60,000 or 80 or something like that?
Wow.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but 160,000 is just ridiculous. So, in short, I mean, the media's already latched on, and they'll continue to put out articles and promotion on him, whatever he does. And, especially now that this thing has become so huge, you don't need a media world tour or to do as many morning shows. Save that for the other fighters. That's why it seems a little bit ridiculous to pull him from the card, because that happened after that tweet. Once this thing blew up, that's when they put him, off the pay-per-view. And it's a fight that nobody really wanted. And I understand the UFC feeling initially like they needed to do all that promotion, but now that we aren't getting it, everybody seems to want it. So given the changed circumstances, I don't think it makes sense to keep him off the card.
And I have to tell you guys, nothing pisses me off more than when you see, for example, a Conor McGregor and AD Diaz doing an interview with some fool who has no idea about MMA, does not really promote the fight because they're too confused to know what's going on. And the whole thing is, honestly, I don't know if you feel like this sometimes, Elias, but as a media member, sometimes I do feel like this. If we had a fraction of the time that some of these major outlets have to talk to these guys, we could get some really solid stuff out of them. You yourself as well. But they send them to a lot of these shows where, quite frankly, they don't really give a fuck about the event.
Yep.
They don't really give a fuck about Conor McGregor. This is just a sideshow to them. It's a circus. It's a freak show to them. They don't really care enough to even find out what's going on. And you get these horrible interviews that are just a blatant waste of time. And not only is it, well, sometimes it is hilarious to watch, but other times you're like, oh my God, I just feel bad for everyone involved. But not only do the interviewers not really care about it, you could see how much it frustrates the fighters who are going through like a weight cut or have a restricted schedule, had to miss training that morning to be on a show where this interviewer doesn't even really care about it. And in that regard, yeah, I do think the UFC need to do their homework before they send these guys on. Now, we all remember that show they went on recently going to UFC 196. Was it like something to do with economics? A show something to do with finances?
It's like NBC Money or something like that.
Now, you would think that somebody at the UFC or somebody in the team would say, look, I don't think this interview is probably the right place to put Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor, because what are they going to put in terms of finances? You know what I mean? It was a ridiculous setup. And I think there needs to be more background work to these shows. I think you can do a reduced schedule with interviews that care about the sport that are still mainstream, and you can get a lot out of it. But when you have all these ridiculous shows doing all these really stupid interviews that don't add anything to the promotion and actually piss off the fighters and make them angry that they're there and wasting their time on those interviews, then you sort of adding more fuel to the fire and making them angrier and angrier, wondering why they're there. So I really think there needs to be a bit more homework and background work done when they're doing these sorts of things.
And I will add this, though, that Money interview, CSNBC Money, whatever it was hilarious. I'm so glad that interview happened. At the frustration of probably not so much Conor McGregor, but at least Nate Diaz. It looked like they've been doing interviews for 10 hours and it was the last one. You know when you're at work, like any job, and it's like Friday and it's like 10 to 5 and you're like, I don't give a fuck. I'm not doing anything right now. It was one of those interviews. I'm so glad it happened. But I mean, look, I understand that, and I think like it's a bummer that, you know, sometimes MMA media don't get the I guess time or attention or priority that some of these other random outlets, you know, do. I can sometimes see the benefits of those interviews because, you know, the interviewers may not know anything and they may not care, but then all the actual public watching those shows, they don't know and they don't care either. So I guess in some sense, the interviewer's asking questions on a real layman level. If you got someone like McGregor who, you know, is pretty much good under all conditions and can sell on any platform, he'll still make something out of it. So I don't think those shows are completely obsolete. I just think that they're not that necessary for not so much UFC 200, but for a Conor McGregor who, you know, already gets so much publicity and is at that Ronda Rousey level where if she puts something on her Instagram, there's going to be articles about it. It's the same thing with him now.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that just from a few tweets, he's already wiled up a ridiculous amount of media storm without any media world tours. But guys, Dana White all but closed the door on McGregor fighting at UFC 200, the UFC 200 press conference, but I still got that vibe that if the right conversation came together, the fight still has a chance of happening. Wait, let's do our version of predictions. Elias, do we think that McGregor versus Diaz is canceled for good from 200, or is there still a chance? Is there still an inkling that this fight might still happen?
I don't have inside information, but I feel that there's still a chance, and there's no door closed. And the reason I feel that is that I think Dana White and all of the UFC is going to face some pressure of their own from outside forces. I think Nevada, I think Las Vegas, I think more importantly the MGM Grand Resort really wants that fight. They have this new arena, I believe, that they're using, and I think they want McGregor. And so I think this is probably why Dana White is so particularly frustrated, because he's not only is he facing maybe some agency from fighters trying to exert some control over their own lives, but he above him he may have people that are pushing him to do something he doesn't want to either. So I feel like there's still got to be a chance. I think Nate Diaz is making it really clear. I think Conor McGregor is being really clear. If those guys stick to their guns, I feel like the fight can happen.
I think McGregor wants back in. I think him tweeting about how he's made his money and it's the UFC's move shows that he's paying attention. He wants a response from them. If he didn't want a response and he really was content, I don't think he needed to say anything. After that Facebook post, that was like, finish him in Mortal Kombat, fatality done. You don't need to do anything else, but he did. And then there was a subsequent tweet during the press conference. He's paying attention. He wants to know what's... I think he knows more than us, but I think he wants a response. But I think the UFC, sort of to your point earlier, Elias, I think they're looking at this from a long-term perspective and feel it's more important to restore order and get somebody back in line than the money that will potentially be made at UFC 200. I think they're worried that if they do this for Conor and they say, all right, we fold, we'll give you the schedule, whatever, that Ronda Rousey might start saying no to doing appearances because she's been an absolute powerhouse, and maybe other fighters, even though, you know, let's be honest, there's not really any other fighters that compare to, say, a Conor or a Ronda Rousey. They're isolated, incidents, but then the issue is they're still shooting themselves in the foot, and the UFC 200 still won't be as big as it could have been. The fans want the fight. Conor wants the fight. Nate wants the fight. It's pretty much guaranteed that it'll do big money, especially now. I mean, I think the only reason why they don't make it is to prove a point that they are the ones in control. And if Lorenzo Fertitta, who apparently, according to Dave Meltzer, is the one who actually pulled the plug, not Dana, let's not forget, he's a billionaire who has other successful businesses. I think it's more important for him in his mind to secure the future of the UFC and set this precedent than sort of blow it all over one pay-per-view. And let's be honest, it's not like UFC 200 is going to tank regardless. They'll still do big numbers. So I'm saying, I'm hoping it happens. I don't think it will. I think it's done.
I think there's a chance it might happen, but again, I think the chances are very small. And I guess the UFC always say we put on the fights that the fans want. Let's see what happens. Do the fans get what they want, or will the UFC get what they want? I guess we'll see what happens in the next few months. But Elias, thank you so much for coming on the program. Guys, make sure to follow him on Twitter at Elias Cepeda. Now, I'm not sure, are we allowed to say much about the secret project that you're on, or do fans just need to stay tuned and see what comes of it?
Oh no! By all means, you can. That's nice of you. I mean, what I'm basically doing this week is I'm traveled from Chicago, where I'm based out of, to California, and I'm doing a bunch of fun things. I headed over to the Eddie Bravo Invitational. I'm visiting the camp of Cyborg Justino, who's making a UFC debut soon. I'm also visiting American Kickboxing Academy with Luke Rockhold, and I'm headed over to Diaz country. I haven't talked to anyone there, so I haven't gotten a hold of anyone, but I'm showing up, so hopefully they're nice to me. And and I'm going to also try to stop by Sacramento. I got word from a buddy of mine who's training for a camp up there. So I'm trying to visit some training camps. We're going to be doing some travel logs every day with brief kind of action of what we've seen and what we've done, a few photos, and then we'll be circling back with some longer form stuff the week of some of these fights like Cyborg, like Luke Rockhold and stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. They can check it out this week, starting this week at foxsports.com/UFC. But yeah, secret's out. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, man. Anyone who wants to check it out, please do.
Yeah, well, we're not very good at keeping secrets here at Submission. No, just kidding. It's look, we're very excited to check it out, guys. Make sure to check it out. And Elias, best of luck, my friend. If you run into any problems with the Diaz brothers, make sure to call us, and we won't be able to do very much.
I appreciate it. I'm sure me being such big admirers of them will go a long way, hopefully.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Just don't make any 209 bets with Nate Diaz. And there you go, guys. Elias Cepeda back on Submission Radio for yet another time. We always like having him on. We always appreciate his insight. And, yeah, like we mentioned before, check out his stuff on Fox Sports. And that's pretty much it. That's another show, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Big thank you to our guests, Junior Dos Santos and Don Frye and Elias himself. Got to give you guys the update on what's going to be happening for the next 2 weeks. Next week, we will be busy doing other things, so there will be no official show. The technique of the week will still be raging on with Sam Greco. We have so many techniques, just a ridiculous amount of techniques for you. So we're super pumped about that, and that comes out obviously every Wednesday. The following week, UFC Rotterdam, and here we go. Surprise, surprise, your boys at Submission Radio will be covering UFC Rotterdam, or more specifically, Alan Murphy, who has worked for websites such as World TV in the past. He's on the team, he's on board, and he's going to be at the event. We won't be at the event. We'll be here in Australia, but he'll be there, and he'll be covering it. He'll be doing interviews, a whole bunch of footage, the whole shebang. So a lot of stuff there to enjoy. And that weekend, so obviously 2 weeks from now, no official show. Well, actually, there is a show, just not necessarily the one you used to, not with guests per se, but we're probably going to get a whole bunch of journalists and do a breakdown, I guess, special covering a bunch of fun topics. So something new from Submission Radio, something to get excited about. Don't forget to hit us up on Twitter at SubmissionAUS. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/SubmissionRadioAUS. And until then, we'll catch you guys in 2 weeks.